Guess who just got back today? Them wild out boys who have been away. King Ghidorah, Godzilla and Mothra, hey. And Steven and Ross too. We were wondering where you could be found. On SoundCloud or on Facebook Live. We're gonna have a fun, we're gonna have a jive. Singing it. The boys are back in town.
The boys are back in town. Welcome back to the Kaijusaurus Podcast. Podcast in which a lifelong fan of Godzilla and Kaiju movies watches and reviews all of the films.
Every film ever.
Yeah.
In the Godzilla film franchise canon.
With no. Anyway,
what's my name, Steven? You can remember my name. Come on.
Fucking a lifelong fan watches all the Godzilla films with a newbie. There we go.
There we are. Yeah,
that's the gist of it.
I know my place.
He is Roz Menzies.
And he is Steven Sloss.
And we are here today to discuss the 2001 entry in the Godzilla series, the very succinctly titled Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack.
You mean Godzilla, registered trademark, Mothra, registered trademark, King Ghidorah, trademark, All Monsters Attack.
Or, for the purposes of saving time, GMK.
GMK.
Yeah, as it's popularly known.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So GMK 2001. What can you tell me about the circumstances under which this film was produced?
Well, first of all, you don't want to catch up a bit?
Yeah, let's catch up a bit. It's been a while. I was in the States. I've been in America again for a wedding. We've had the big move. I think we talked about that last time, though.
Oh, yeah.
We're once again in different cities. Well, we never really have recorded the podcast in the same cities at the same time.
Yeah. For the first few months.
Yeah, for the first few months.
Yeah.
How are you, Steven?
Oh, I'm fine. Yeah, Laura and I are now deep into wedding planning.
Yes, of course. Your friends are now double engaged.
Mark your diaries for redacted.
Yes. Also, mark your diaries for redacted. You are not invited.
So that's what I've been up to, and we've got a date, we've got a venue.
That's very exciting.
And so that's
it's
mostly.
It's a shame I'm not invited, because otherwise I would, shit in your food.
No, Ross isn't technically invited, but he's there as we're hiring him to do like a podcast of the wedding.
Yeah, that's it. I'll be live streaming the podcast. You can watch it on Facebook Live. I'll be commentating. I'll have a little booth above the wedding venue. It'll be great.
And I turned 25. Wow. Quarter of a hunter, still a stunner.
We're no longer the same age. For 2 weeks at the end of every October, Stephen and I are the same age. He is now 25. I am still 24.
Yeah. God. I'll tell you what, I turned 25 on the 30th of October. So the next day, 31st Halloween, which was my first full day of being 25, and it was a sobering experience. I went to a Halloween party, and at the age of 25, I was the oldest there.
Oh, that's sad.
And I remember just sitting in an armchair, like arms strapped to each side practically, in my Peter Capaldi 12th Doctor outfit, and just thinking, is this it?
Is that all there is? Is that all there is?
Is this it, being at a Halloween party and being the oldest?
Well, just 50 years left, man. If that. Speaking of Halloween, Stephen went as Peter Capaldi's Doctor, and I went as Dougie Jones. And it was a good costume.
Although you got a lot of, oh man, cool, the Joker!
Yeah, everyone either thought it was the Joker or the Riddler.
Or the mask.
Or the mask. To be fair though, I mean, it was a very low effort costume. It was literally just a big novelty green suit. It's equally, it's very easy to do a Dougie Jones from Twin Peaks costume, but at the same time, it's not a sort of instantly recognisable one. But that was a good catch-up, I feel like.
That was alright,
We're in my new apartment in the fine city of Glasgow. So that's all well and good. A nice new podcasting locale, change of pace for us both, change of scenery. We've actually just gorged on massive pizzas.
Yes.
So I think this is going to be a very sluggish, lazy, post-dinner kind of cast.
Shout out to the finest pizzeria in Glasgow. Redacted.
Very relaxed. Oh, is my... Oh,
it's all good.
It's
just,
all good.
It's just screensavering.
It's just screensavering.
It's all good.
That's absolutely fine.
It's all good, my friend. It's all good.
So...
Also watch Peep Show.
Watch Peep Show.
Yeah. So, Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, giant monsters all attack, Gojira, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Daikaiju, Kogeki?
Say it in Japanese.
I just fucking did. Or I think I did. So the circumstances of this film. So the third film in Toho's revived series in the new millennium, the Millennium series. As we've discussed previously, the modus operandi for this run of films was, each film, new director, new interpretations, allowed to freedom from past continuities, etc., that sort of thing. So that continues. Excuse me, we're both a wee bit...
a bit gassy.
That continues with this film. Now, Godzilla 2000, 2 films ago, a very, very good film which we both enjoyed, and Godzilla vs. Megaguirus, the last film we watched. They both performed at the box office pretty under Toho's estimates.
Right.
They underperformed. Enough that Toho was saying, okay, if the next one isn't a hit... Do you hear that?
Someone's in trouble.
Do you hear that? Oh, that's...
City living.
Forget it, Ross. It's Glasgow. So these 2 films underperformed to such an extent that Toho were saying, okay, if the next one's not a hit, chuck it.
Aye.
Franchise is over.
Wow.
For the time being.
Yeah, of course.
For the time being. So, this film pretty much had to be a hit if they wanted Godzilla to continue as a film franchise. In the director's chair for this film is one Shusuke Kaneko, who has indirectly been brought up several times in the podcast before. He has Kaiju previous, but not in the Godzilla series, or even with Toho.
Okay.
Let's cast our minds back to the year 1980.
Oh, what a time.
Daiei Studios, Japan's second most famous, prolific, what have you, film studio, known for Gamera.
Right.
Manages to crawl out of the pit of bankruptcy and releases a film called Gamera, the Super Monster, which was basically sort of an... It sounds more harsh than it should be to say this, but it's an extended clip show. It uses extensive footage from previous films.
Right, okay,
with new footage shot intermittently in between it to link it all. But this was not enough to save Daiei, and from 1980, Gamera went into... forced retirement until 1995, when by this point Daiei is owned by a huge Japanese media conglomerate called Kadokawa, and so they're reviving a lot of Daiei's properties, and they revive Gamera after a 15-year gap between films, with 1995's Gamera Guardian of the Universe, directed by Shusuke Kaneko. And that film is the first in a trilogy that ran from 95 to 99. Gamera Guardian of the Universe, Gamera 2 Advent of Legion, and Gamera 3 Revenge of Iris, or Gamera 3 Incomplete Struggle. 3 very, very, very excellent films, regarded as some of, if not the best, kaiju films ever made. Often placed second only to the original Godzilla. So Kaneko wrote and directed these films. Special effects by Shinji Higuchi, who would go on to co-direct Shinji. So this is Kaneko's previous experience within the kaiju genre. And that success with reviving Gamera, those films put Toho's 90s efforts to shame, by the way, but that's a whole other subject. So his success reviving those, I assume, led to the appointment of doing a Godzilla film. But even Kaneko, a director as great as he is, faces restraints within a system as rigid as Toho was at the time. His original, well, not his original idea, he went through a lot of ideas for his Godzilla film, all of which eventually became GMK. I'll put a link to some of these in the show notes, but the original, not the original idea, the idea he had, which was sort of the first draft of what would become GMK, was not GMK, it was Godzilla versus Maragon, who made it into the film. Godzilla versus Maragon, Anguirus, and Varen, giant monsters all attack. Anguirus, Godzilla's frenemy, featured in many films. You remember Anguirus?
Yeah.
Do you?
He's in the second one.
That's right!
I know my stuff.
Yeah. Anguirus and...
I've seen 28 of these.
and Varen, who you won't know at all, made a very brief cameo in Destroy All Monsters back in '68 and was the star of its own film in the 50s, Varen the Unbelievable. So Kaneko wanted to make essentially the same film as what we ended up with, but with different monsters. And with a few other changes, like different, more sort of hard sci-fi artillery and weapons and stuff, like a big flying submarine that Toho had in some old films called the Gotengo, etc. But Toho, it goes either way really. There's two accounts to it. Toho stepped in and said, "No, we need bankable monsters." What with the situation?
Yeah, as it is.
Bankable monsters, so you can keep Maragon, but Mothra and King Ghidorah
because people recognise them
for marquee value. And Kaneko's like, oh god, okay. But apparently he was telling some friends about this at the time, and his friends hadn't heard of Anguirus or Varen, so apparently that made him go, alright, okay. So Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, giant monsters, all out attack, it became. And this is the film we have, and which we're discussing now.
That we watched.
Yes.
So, music, who was that by?
Ko Otani, who also collaborated with Kaneko on the Gamera films. They're a sort of solid director-composer partnership.
Well, that's good.
And hasn't composed Godzilla before.
And it's mostly an original score. I mean, apart from the end, it's sort of an entirely original...
It's an original score, yeah. We just get, through the end credits, we get the Godzilla theme by Ifukube and the Great Monster War March by Ifukube. But yeah, they're not used to the main part of the film.
Which makes for a change
it does,
from some of these films. So, shall we just dive right in?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So...
The year is, well, it's 2001, I think.
I believe so.
It's a quarter of a century after the appearance of the original Godzilla, and Japan has had 50 years of peace
and prosperity.
And the Japanese Defense Forces have never militarized post Godzilla. But there's rumblings that Godzilla might come back one day. There's Admiral Tachibana starts the film giving a speech to his troops saying monsters have been sighted in other countries. A similar monster attacked America at the end of the last century.
Is that supposed to be?
It's a dig.
US Godzilla.
Yeah. Yep. A similar monster attacked.
So Matthew Broderick is canon within this film. Correct.
A similar monster attacked America at the end of the last century, and you get two of his troops saying, "Was that really Godzilla?" The Americans say it was, but not in Japan. It's a little bit on the nose there, lads.
Yes, absolutely.
But fair enough. I can imagine that getting huge cheers at a G-Fest screening. Funny story about a G-Fest screening of this film later on.
Okay.
But it's good.
I'll write that
down. So there's rumblings about Godzilla coming back, etc. The deep sea submersible Satsuma is on a sort of it's on a mission to explore the remains of an exploded nuclear sub, and it catches a brief glimpse of the fin of an enormous creature, and then we explode it in the title sequence, which is unfortunately pasted over with English text in the font Impact on the version we watched, because it's a pretty explosive Japanese title sequence, but whatever, you know.
It's a good I mean, what I really liked about that title sequence is it has all this sort of mythology and the iconography of the monsters. It's just heavy, intense font, heavy, intense music, over Godzilla's scales, King Ghidorah's scales, and Mothra's fur?
Body.
Fuzz.
Yeah. And
Fuzz.
And Maragon.
And Maragon. Yeah. Maragon was there too.
That's pretty much Maragon's role in this film, isn't it?
I'm here too, guys. But yeah, no, great title sequence.
Yeah, I agree. So we meet reporter Yuri Tachibana, daughter of Admiral Tachibana, who works for the trash dump of broadcast television, BS Digital Q, which I'm fairly certain is named after the show Ultra Q, which was the very first show in Super Eye Productions' Ultra (Man) series. Yeah.
So we have Yuri and her team. They are essentially producers of like third-rate, like over-the-top supernatural, like reality TV shows, and
things like these, these ghost hunt,
most haunted kind of things like that. And Yuri, we understand, obviously has aspirations beyond her station. She clearly, as a filmmaker, desires to actually be making stuff of worth and of value, but everyone else around her actually seems quite content to be producing crap.
Yeah, and when we meet her, they're producing a factual show, I guess you could say, about a supposed lake monster. When a mysterious earthquake hits. And from here on, a sort of series of mysterious circumstances and accidents happen.
A huge number of it's almost a montage. It's great.
A lot of punished young people as well.
I mean, we get scenes of bikers, a big group of bikers wrecking statues, getting buried under rubble as a tunnel collapses.
That's right.
That's Baragon appears out the way. We have teens at a lake wrecking buildings, torturing dogs.
Yeah, God.
And drowning, being pulled under the water by
Mothra.
They deserve that, though. Don't hurt dogs.
And a man goes into a forest in an attempt to hang himself. But
the ground collapses beneath him.
It falls through. And he falls into an icy cave, which is home to the dormant King Ghidorah. And the linking factor in all these incidents is that a small stone statue has been defaced or broken or whatever have you, and that's what's awakened these monsters. And at each area as well, a mysterious sort of old man is seen, sort of watching over the monsters and watching over the people who are involved in these incidents.
Yeah, these sort of desecrations.
Yeah. And while Admiral Tachibana and the Japanese Self-Defense Forces are scouring for any sign of Godzilla in an attempt to eliminate it before it can return to Japan, Yuri and her BS Digital Q team come across the story of the legendary Guardian monsters, legendary creatures that were slain in ancient Japan and now slumber and have now become guardian deities protecting different regions of Japan. Baragon, the earth; Mothra, the water; and King Ghidorah, the sky, I suppose. And all these events sort of coalesce together. The awakening of the guardian monsters times with Godzilla's awakening and return to Japan after 50 years of peace. So all of these aspects coalesce and result in a huge catastrophe.
Yes.
But the crux of Godzilla's return in this one, and this is left... It's not vague, but it's not entirely clear either in any translation that I've seen, or it's not 100% hashed out. The crux of Godzilla in this is that this is Godzilla revived, possessed maybe, undead Godzilla, possessed and infused by the souls of the Japanese that died in the Pacific conflicts in World War II.
This is what the old man tries to tell Yuri.
The old man tells Yuri, and that these souls are channeling through Godzilla because they are punishing modern Japan, because they have forgotten the suffering of those from wartime.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, that is something that's a little different from the sort of from certainly Godzilla's background, but a little different for the kind of message that the Godzilla films have sent before in some ways.
Yeah, well, not to get into this too heavily to start off with, but, we've discussed previously, we've brought up the nationalistic reading of Shin Godzilla, which I disagree with, and I think you do as well.
Yeah.
But if, compare it to this film, I'm not saying this film is nationalistic in its ideologies or its themes either, but it's an interesting one.
It's an argument that would probably apply better here than some other Godzilla films.
Absolutely, yeah. So just to round things off before we get into our opinions, discussion, etc., in Kaneko's original draft of this, Maragon remained the same role. Anguirus would have had Mothra's role in the lake, etc., and Varen would have been King Ghidorah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and apparently the monster suit sculptor compromised by putting Varen's facial features into King Ghidorah.
That did look cool. It was a good King Ghidorah.
It was a good look.
It was a really cool King Ghidorah.
So, Ross, GMK, Giant Monsters All Out Attack, 2001, Der Shusuke Kaneko. What did you think of this film?
Oh man, this was a really interesting, fascinating film. There's so much to talk about with this one because it really does just launch. We're well past the year 2000. We are into the future now. It just really takes Godzilla in such a rapidly different direction. It radically changes Godzilla's backstory. It radically changes Mothra's, King Ghidorah's. It really changes a lot of things in the film and really introduces entirely new concepts like the Spirit Guardian thing. It completely changes the background of King Ghidorah.
Heroic Ghidorah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's nothing but a good guy, whereas before he was introduced as a sort of nihilistic, demonic space creature from the nether realms of human ken. Now he's our wee pal, historical pal that we've always had, and just out and out a good guy. This film has a lot that I really, really dig in particular. I will talk so much about this, and it's something that, it strongly connects itself to the original Godzilla film. And it's trying to talk about some of the similar things. It's trying to talk about the sort of trauma of the nuclear devastation once again. Yes. And it is what we're talking about just there, obviously, trying to readjust for us to look back at the general traumas of the war, particularly the sort of Pacific Theatre as well.
Yes.
Really looking at that. And one of the things that I think this movie's really, really interesting about is, much like the original Godzilla, how much of it isn't just from the perspective of Yuri and the General, because those are two basic protagonist sets in these Godzilla films. A general and a sort of...
a journalist.
A journalist, group of young people. The amount that this film focuses on the general public... The amount of times we cut almost in montage to so many different people discovering monsters, being killed by monsters, sometimes even just crossing the monster's path. Yeah. Sometimes harm comes to them, sometimes it doesn't, but all of them, their lives are changed. They discover something, they see something that they've never seen before. It's really, really fun. It's really fascinating. I mean, some of the cuts are so strange and out there that you just cut to the weirdest situation. I mean, I laughed through a lot of it because some of it's unwittingly funny.
There's a lot of black humour in this.
It's
film.
deeply funny. I mean, take the scene where out of nowhere we cut to a gentleman fully suited with a briefcase in the woods.
Yeah.
You think for a second, no, he's not going to do that, is he? Off comes his tie over the tree branch, and then it's so deeply sort of blackly comic.
Yeah.
And just as he pulls himself up onto the branch, the ground beneath him collapses. Down he goes, terrified. He makes this horrific discovery, only to return back to work to tell everyone that he's seen. And if I'm right, he does make it out alive.
He goes to the police station to tell them what he's seen, and when Maragon attacks the police station, he's last seen sort of running away, I guess.
Yeah.
That actor was in Kaneko's Gamera trilogy.
All right.
This is it's difficult because obviously you as a newbie won't pick up on actor cameos.
Yeah, a lot of those sometimes get lost in me.
That would be considered a cameo from that actor,
right?
Because Japanese audience would be going, it's
so.
He played a sort of not cowardly, but a sort of he played a detective in the Gamera films, the three of them, who had a sort of rise and fall arc between the three films. He's a great actor.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, throughout the film, you jump to Spagoers, who have this little comic scene where they're taking pictures of Maragon.
Yeah, take a picture of the monster, then we'll run.
Yeah, you cut to, authorities at the lake where Mothra has been found. You cut to, you spend a lot of time with the TV commentators flying above the helicopter of the first Maragon is it the Maragon versus Godzilla fight. You cut to, one of my favourites is the girl in the hospital with a broken leg.
That's grim, isn't
and
it?
you watch her as she realises, I'm trapped in hospital, Godzilla is coming towards me, I'm doomed. You see that panic in her face. It's awful, but it is kind of getting...
But Godzilla just walks past.
Uh-huh.
She breathes a sigh of relief, I've survived. Then the tail comes...
And it's terrible. It's cruel, but it's hilarious. It's so funny.
It's cruel humor, isn't it? Yeah. But...
or the woman in the shop. A man bursts into a store, yelling on a microphone that Godzilla's here. We need to go. And the woman says, "No, who cares?" And she, and then only when it earthquakes, only when she finally sees Godzilla, does she sort of scream. Drops her shop and
there's a lot of dark humor in it, but I don't think it ever sort of crosses that threshold where you kind of go, "Oh no."
No, I mean it's not cruel. I mean the thing that's interesting to me is actually how much this film did feel like. More than actually the last two films that came out after the 1998 Godzilla. But this is the one that actually seems to be kind of trying to emulate the parts of Roland Emmerich that kind of work.
Oh yeah?
If you think about Godzilla, if you think about The Day After Tomorrow, all his movies, one of the key things about them is how much they just jump around. Scientists
you're not wrong.
in a weather report to military, it's all about kind of discovering the situation through the perspective of these random characters. And again, I am not using this as a means to compliment Roland Emmerich in general. I don't think he's particularly good, but that is something that is kind of a signature characteristic of his films.
Yeah, slice of life.
Yeah. And it's particularly when it's a disaster movie.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's used to a really, really good effect here. And in so many interesting ways. I mean, one of the best, we'll call them a cutaway, a vignette, from this film is when, I believe, what's the is it when... There's an explosion in the distance. I believe it's when Godzilla uses his...
It uses his atomic breath for the first time.
Yes.
And it conjures up a mushroom cloud.
Mushroom cloud.
Yeah.
So you cut to a classroom just before this happens.
Yeah.
You know what's coming. You've seen Godzilla just charging up his what's it called?
His atomic breath.
His atomic breath.
Yeah.
And it's so good because the teacher, everyone in the classroom sort of prepares themselves. They know it's coming. There's a shock and anticipation. But the best thing about it is you think they're going to get hit.
Yeah.
You think you're just about to see this classroom explode, but you don't. You see the flash. You see the room shake. And You see everyone realise that they're still there. And in the distance, the teacher looks out and all she can think is, that's a mushroom cloud.
Yeah.
And I think what I found was really, really interesting is that so much of these... we've talked a lot about how the Godzilla films are have this allegory of Godzilla as nuclear weapon. But I think for almost maybe the first time, they're really driving in this idea of what it must have been like.
Yeah.
To have experienced a nuclear attack, visiting individual people, going about their day, when suddenly, just like that, there's a great big flash, there's an explosion, they witness something, all hell breaks loose, and their lives are changed completely. And the more, some of them are funny, some of them are serious, but the more you go through them again and again, it really just builds this pattern of experience that everyone's going through. It's this universal thing rather than what we normally just following a journalist as she runs around from place to place, which still happens, but that is something that I really did appreciate, all these sort of strange little cutaways. And before I finish them up, my absolute favourite one is the man taking a piss when there's an earthquake. And then he looks out the window, screams when he's immediately flattened by Godzilla. And I think that was very clearly like their attempt to do the Jurassic Park toilet shot.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah.
And again, not in a bad way, just it's a fun thing to do. Someone getting crushed while they pee.
It's funny.
But yeah, so many just funny little scenes and so many interesting little parts there that I was really a big fan of.
That atomic bomb imagery is quite on the nose.
Yeah,
no, it's not a bad thing, but
no, it's certainly not. It's certainly not a bad thing. I mean, for a lot of Godzilla films, it's always good to come back to that. And again, for a film that's setting itself as a direct continuation of Godzilla once again, you know,
it always comes back to that.
It does always come back to it. And I mean, obviously, the film wants you to think more than just the use of nuclear weapons, and it does want you to think about the casualty and the loss of life and the actual war dead of the Pacific conflict, and specifically, you know, put it a little bit back on the individual, bring up these questions on, you know, the roles that were performed in the war and things like that. Another thing that the film does to very good effect is its references and its callbacks and its use of the original 1950s Godzilla. You know, it kind of starts off quite subtly with one of the throwaway scenes to teens who are like clearly on some sort of diving vacation. And they're hanging out, they're playing ping pong when earthquakes start to happen. But they talk about how they are very near the original island in the original Godzilla.
One of those kids is the girl who ends up in the hospital bed.
Oh, is it? Yeah. Right, okay, yeah. No, I mean, I was wondering if...
She doesn't have a good time.
She really doesn't. 2 attacks in one, that poor girl. See, I wouldn't have noticed that. That's great. Like, I kind of did wonder if some of these characters we had seen a few times in a row, and I think near the end you actually do return to a few of these segments. But it really is interesting because you get this perspective. These kids are 50 years from now, they're teenagers. It's all sort of an old story to them. You know, and like the old man says, it's sort of forgotten. The sort of the trauma, the scar that it's gone.
I suppose like sort of an immediate point of reference for, say, you and I watching this in 2017 is that, you know, you and I have never experienced war.
Yeah, well, that's it.
Like as a nation, we've never been
under such.
Yeah, we've never been under siege, shall we say? Yeah.
Or in that particular situation, and then when you get scenes like that, it makes it all the more clear when this sort of revived, spiritually kind of imbued with the war dead Godzilla returns. That it really is this sense that the scar is not healed, it's back.
Yeah.
It's here to sort of make itself remembered and reminded.
This is a cruel Godzilla.
Yeah.
This incarnation of Godzilla is mean.
I mean, it is. He looks evil. Yeah. He's not got pupils.
Yeah, there's the glassy, milky white eyes, just blanks, looking at nothing.
Yeah, he has a much more sort of darker, gnarled, kind of reptilian look.
Yeah.
He's not quite as big as he's been.
No, this Godzilla was scaled down a wee bit, yeah. This was sort of the classic 50-metre size.
But it kind of works because it's, you know...
Yeah.
He's like a short, stout person, you know, that you're actually more worried of in a fight.
Well, you know, to quote Nigel Powers, it's not the size, mate. It's how you use it.
But yeah, no, like little short evil Godzilla is absolutely sort of punishingly evil.
It's the first Godzilla film that, you know, I think it's the first Godzilla film where, you know, he's purposefully, intently killing people.
Yeah.
Like,
choosing them out.
Individuals. Yeah, this is the first Godzilla film we get like a Godzilla eye shot.
Yeah, that's right. Which is absolutely great. Like he's unambiguously evil.
Yeah, this is it's the first completely villainous Godzilla since I don't know, say Return of Godzilla in 1984 maybe, but even then, like, Godzilla's never been characterized as a villain in the same way that he is in this one.
No, there's always been, like, you took his child, or you harmed his sleeping place, or he was
a sense of a misunderstood creature, or you know, something, a sense that we've somehow, you know, we're being punished for, it's like in the case of the original or something. But Godzilla has been villainous in the past, and has been cast as the villain. But he's never been so thoroughly evil as he is in this film.
One of the other things that's really, really fun with the Admiral is his revelation that he was there in the original Godzilla attack. And at first I thought, okay, cool, we're going to use some old footage, but no, it's actually so cool that they went back and they reshot new footage from, back to the 1950s, original set and costume. So cool.
It's fun because in that brief scene, while people are running past, on a wall behind them is film posters, and those are for 2 non-kaiju films directed by Ishiro Honda.
Right.
Which is a
wow,
nice
that would have been out at that time.
Yeah.
That's so cool. See, I mean, it's there's a great level of detail. I think the thing that comes across in this film is that there's a real desire to make a good film here.
Yeah.
There's a real interest, a real passion in it. Like, while it's necessarily not necessarily one of my favourites, or to me not necessarily like, one of the best.
Sure.
There's clear passion, there's clear interest, and the people that are making it actually do clearly care a lot about these creatures, care a lot about Godzilla, and are really intent on doing something different. And that's the best way to do a Godzilla film justice, is to do something new with it, and to take it into an interesting direction.
I agree, because as I've always said in this podcast, Godzilla is a character that is extremely fluid and can be put into almost any sort of story or tone or setting or anything.
Yeah, I mean, same with all these monsters. I mean, one of the best, we talked a lot in the past about how, I mean, I think you made this point to me originally about how King Ghidorah sort of had his fangs taken out, and starting off as his big bad was slowly sort of a subservient creature, mind controlled, used as backup.
Yeah.
But what this film does that's really effective is that in changing his background, kind of remythologizes King Ghidorah. Kind of makes him scary and interesting and great again. He's what, thousands of years old.
Yeah.
We call him the 1,000-year dragon.
Yeah.
This sort of ancient spirit guardian with Mothra, with Maragon.
Yeah.
And like we said, a good guy, a real defender.
Yeah.
And they make it clear he's not a defender of Japan. They say that...
They say homeland, not nation.
That's it. It's explained that there's a bit of a mistranslation from the ancient text. That these are defenders of Earth. Defenders of
nature.
And goodness and humans as a people rather than
not as a nation.
A national construct.
Which, there's something to potentially counter the nationalism embodied in Godzilla as a character in this film.
I mean, I love that little joke where one of the military soldiers sort of jokes that, does Godzilla just hate Japan? Just about how often these films have him attacking them. Oh, it's so good though. Let's see what else we've got. Another little throwback to the original Godzilla is the little reference to the oxygen destroyer, because the Admiral lays, well, we know that Godzilla was destroyed in the 1950s, but we have no idea how.
This film, that's part of the Admiral's characterization, is that he has a not an unwavering, not a staunch belief, but a strong belief in the capability of the Japanese self-defense forces, despite he holding it up a point of pride that he's never seen active combat. And he's sort of rallied his men behind what they believed to be the truth, that the self-defense forces defeated Godzilla in the 50s. But clearly his belief in that is shaken a little bit. So he at one point he asks one of his superiors, did we really defeat Godzilla back in the 50s? And what is relayed to him basically is
that's right.
Godzilla was defeated by an unknown chemical compound, the creator of which is now gone, and we have no idea what it was.
Yeah, and so things are a little hopeless.
Yeah,
but no, that is a great, and that's nice because whereas before you had the oxygen destroyer creature that was sort of a
destroyer,
that was sort of a bastardization of everything that Serizawa would have wanted.
Yeah, I think a little bit. Yeah,
this is great because it really actually redeems him, and it really actually justifies what he did.
Yeah,
because it gives you that real sense of closure, knowing that Serizawa defeated Godzilla, and as per his wishes, there was no trace of the oxygen destroyer left. Rather, I mean, I can't remember how they even find out with the oxygen destroyer. Don't they just have...
It's just sort of knowledge.
Yeah, they're just like, we know how it works, but whereas Serizawa expressly destroys everything that he had to do with it.
Yeah.
It's actually quite rewarding to see that years from now, although it does, unfortunately, hinder defeating Godzilla in the future, it is nice to see that Serizawa's desire to see the Oxygen Destroyer completely destroyed.
And like I said to you,
and removed,
at that scene in the film, any sort of reference, however little, however small or vague, to the Oxygen Destroyer and Serizawa just gets a little, oh, yes, from me.
Oh, totally. Should we talk about the fight?
Yeah,
let's talk about that fight.
Well, first of all, I think the Godzilla Maragon fight is really, really something.
Oh, yeah. It's great.
It's a lot of fun, you know, the daytime fight in a sort of different locale, a sort of hilly sort of touristish
area. Yeah, well, that's
area,
what I was going to say. That was actually a really good fight because it's just such actually a different locale. You've got the mountaintop spa retreat, you've got the cable cars, you've got people taking pictures. That was actually a really interesting location to have this fight, and it is quite a good... I mean, there's only 2 big fights in the film.
That's right. Although, you know, the second fight is...
The rest of the movie. But, I mean, again... is a good one. But we'll start with the Maragon fight. It really is intense. And what I like about it, it doesn't go on for too long, and Baragon's, when he is killed, he's gone. Rather than sort of crawling back and coming again and fighting him again. And that's kind of something that annoys me sometimes with Godzilla films, is the monsters just keep getting away, they have a fight in the middle, a fight just before the end, and a big fight at the end. So it was nice to kind of have Godzilla almost fight his way through Maragon, through Mothra, finally... the final form, King Ghidorah.
Ghidorah gets revived a few times there.
He gets a lot of chances.
Ghidorah gets a few chances and ruins everyone.
Yes.
It's kind of a shame because you're left coming at this film going, oh shit, the Guardian monsters did nothing.
They did not do well. They did not do well.
But no, I think the Godzilla Maragon fight is really, really something special. I think it's just a lot of fun. It's shot really well. Just the size difference in the two monsters makes it a really visually interesting fight as well. And like how Godzilla's sort of slow and lumbering, Maragon is kind of sort of athletic and quick, and that despite the size difference, that sort of pits them interestingly against each other. Like when Maragon leaps off a hill towards Godzilla, and Godzilla just smacks it with his tail, smashing Maragon into the news helicopter, which has been telecasting the whole thing. And it
explodes.
And I like when Yuri and her colleagues show up to the scene and go, oh, "That's our guardian monster. It's tiny."
Or the woman that takes a picture of him saying, "Oh, he's so scary, but he's so cute."
Yeah.
And then Godzilla viciously curb stomps him. And smashes his head in.
It's a lot, isn't it? Yeah.
He's vicious. I mean, he totally utilises his atomic breath, really just blasting these guys with it.
Kind of explodes all the Guardian.
But he really just stomps Maragon to bits, really. Yeah, and just finishes him off with
finishes off with the atomic breath.
That's it. Blasts him away. And
Mothra, looking a bit more waspy.
Yeah, I mean, Mothra again, always a defender.
Yeah.
Because at first, you know, it seemed like maybe she was going to damage some stuff, but actually she just does a lot of flying overhead of people and giving them a wee fright.
Minus the Shobi gene. Again, Mothra as a character being recontextualized into this new story.
Yeah. Still has the sort of goddess background.
That angle, yeah.
Supernatural sort of spiritual angle, but not with the Shobi to kind of explain.
That's it, yeah.
Oh, the Shibina are the Doctor Who creatures, aren't they?
No, that's Slitheen.
Oh.
Shibin is a steak restaurant in Edinburgh.
A good one at that.
It's pretty good, isn't it? Yeah, it's not been in ages, actually.
Nah.
And King Ghidorah, again, as we discussed earlier, sort of reinterpreted is the polite term these days.
But, a reboot.
Sort of smaller. The first King Ghidorah that doesn't, dwarf Godzilla.
Yeah.
And again, cast as the hero.
Yeah, a defender, the sort of main leader of this trio.
Yeah,
Mothra fights Godzilla, digs her sort of insect feet. I can't remember what they're called. Her stalks into the back of Godzilla's head, which is a great move, and spends a lot of time bothering him. Has a stinger, like you said, a kind of wasp stinger that fires little projectiles at him. But really, when Godzilla gets the lowdown on King Ghidorah, slams him against the ground, knocks him for 6, that's him out of the game, and is about to finish him off with atomic fire. Mothra flies in and throws herself in front of that atomic fire, takes the brunt. She is like a defense kind of gal.
Mothra goes through a lot.
She does.
And like in the history of the Godzilla films, Mothra goes through a lot, and she gets a bit of a shit time from the fans. Because like, Mothra, fucking butterfly,
Big moth,
gully. But it's like, nah, Mothra, you don't deserve Mothra. I know. Mothra goes through.
We
so
don't
much.
deserve Mothra. Show appreciation to Mothra. Get your DVD of Mothra now and kiss it.
Yeah, I would if I could, but unfortunately we're not in my flat. But yeah, Mothra goes through a lot, and like I've said before, Mothra historically is one of the only monsters that can not, defeat Godzilla, but can subdue him. Unfortunately, doesn't manage in this one.
Not in this one. Yeah, I mean, canonically, in all the films that we've seen, like, generally Mothra is much stronger and is sort of one of the strongest creatures, but kind of uses the powers for good.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Mothra is killed. Is again atomic blasted.
That's right. All three of them were atomic blasted. Yeah.
And kind of shattered, but her spores or sort of life energy filters into King Ghidorah.
Revives King Ghidorah.
King Ghidorah.
Who before that was Ghidorah, and after the revival becomes King Ghidorah when
Big KG.
it sprouts its wings
Kenny G.
and drags Godzilla down below the surface of Tokyo Bay, and they have a prolonged underwater battle, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Meanwhile, Admiral Tachibana is down there as well. Him and his colleague, fucking pair of badasses. So
I know. I mean, what is it with these films and very cool military figures? We had the villainous one in was it Godzilla 2000?
Oh yeah, Katagiri.
Katagiri, yeah, and we have the sort of light side of the coin with the Admiral in this case. Who again, I mean, that final shot where he walks out unscathed.
Yes,
badass.
Yes.
And then his daughter runs to hug him and he says, "No,
Halt.
I might be infected. I might be radioactive. Leave me alone."
But yeah, he's down there in Tokyo Bay. Him and his colleague in the Satsuma submersibles. They've attached these big, huge drill head rockets to them. And basically the plan is Godzilla's wounded in one part of his sort of upper arm, shoulder area. And the plan is to hit the missile into that and see what can be done. But Tachibana, just being the fucking complete badass that he is, goes into Godzilla.
Yes, goes inside as well. And when that was happening, I was really excited because, again, they're doing something different. We're going inside Godzilla's body. No one's done that. That's cool. That's
I'll
really
tell you what,
cool.
though, it's not for lack of trying. In the 90s, special effects director Koichi Kawakita tried, like, a good few times to get a sort of fantastic voyage within Godzilla's body film going. Cool. It just never happened. And it must have been like, Koichi, get a rest.
And then this director comes in and goes,
It's no happening.
It's no happening, mate. And he comes in, you know what, mate, watch the film. You'll be really pleased.
Well, ironically, Koichi Kawakita is in one of the boardroom scenes as a general.
Oh, is he? That's great. Well, I bet he was pleased with himself.
As is Masaki Tezuka, director of the previous film, Megaguirus, and director of the next two. But anyway,
lovely. But yeah, that's such a cool sequence. And then the part where he drills out.
Yeah, he
breaks through Godzilla's skin.
Inside Godzilla, he launches the sort of DO3 drill missile, and it burrows from within to the outside of Godzilla through that fleshy, horrible wound, creating a huge open
gash.
Yeah, a big gash.
And the coolest thing is how it affects Godzilla. He uses his atomic breath, and instead of coming out his mouth, it blasts out his shoulder. Yeah. It kind of rips him apart from the inside. Yeah. And it's so cool to see Godzilla wounded in that way. Not by a god, but by a mortal.
That scene's great also because, like I was saying earlier, this is a Godzilla that intensely, purposefully kills people.
Yeah.
And in that scene, Yuri and her male colleague from BS Digital Q are sort of washed up on the near the shore of the water because they were telecasting the event and they fell into the water, etc., etc. But they're there, and Godzilla sees them, and it's almost a recognition. We've never really, except for a few one-off instances in the past, sort of in the Showa series, we've never really known Godzilla to single out and recognise individuals. And in this moment, he recognises Yuri as if he's saying, "You've been here all this fucking time, and I'm fucking sick of you.
I'm gonna get you.
This is all your fucking fault."
I love evil Godzilla.
And he just sort of furrows his brow and like gets ready to unleash the atomic breath just on those two people, because that's what he's going for.
Yeah, he's a vindictive little shit.
But no, like you said, it sort of explodes out of his shoulder and it sends him in agony back into the water, where the Admiral still is, and he manages to get out of Godzilla via this wound. And as he's going back to the surface, he sees on his monitor that Godzilla's turning round and spots him in the submersible, and Godzilla, having not learned by this point, goes again to try and fire the atomic breath, and he explodes.
Kaboom! That's it. Shredded Godzilla everywhere. And a sordid battle. Tokyo absolutely destroyed.
Yeah.
The loss of life incalculable. A lot of death in that film.
Yeah.
I mean, reversing a little bit, one of my favourite little small bits is when you see Godzilla sort of stumble. Doesn't fall, he stumbles and bumps into a building. And a little bit of rubble falls off. And you cut to the ground beneath him, where you see soldiers crushed, walled by rubble, and it's so cool.
Yeah.
But this was a really vicious fight. Godzilla is absolutely floored. There was a lot of big explosions.
Biting and scratching and really visceral stuff, like blood.
Yeah,
Godzilla bites into Ghidorah's neck, and there's two trails of sort of like, almost like in vampire movies, there's two trails of blood coming down from teeth.
And his body sort of floats to the water, blood everywhere. That was before he explodes.
Yeah.
And all that's left is his heart.
Yeah, the heart still beating. Still beating.
This spirit, this thing that Japan needs to remember, this thing we all need to remember.
Yeah.
Still there.
Yeah.
Ready to come back.
And, Godzilla's never dead.
Exactly.
Really.
Never ever.
But yeah, it's interesting, going back to we never like to get it too heavy on this show and stuff, but
no,
and I'm never gonna. I think something that a lot of US fans and critics, and for lack of a better term, shall I say, professional fans, something that a lot of these people tend to forget, I think, is that maybe Japanese nationalism isn't your subject to be commenting on. I'm not saying you can't have an opinion on it, obviously, but you're maybe not an expert.
Yeah, well, no, we're not experts.
Exactly.
I mean, we can have a general passing,
but it's
layman's
it's not
theory here and there.
It's not up to any of us really in the Western world to dictate what is and isn't nationalistic behaviour of any other country. I mean,
it's certainly a conversation that's really interesting, and I'm sure, like any country, those kind of conversations are very, very good. But again, I would feel uncomfortable if we were the ones leading that conversation, for example. So,
but
I think
I think there's probably an argument to be made that there is a nationalistic streak in this movie. But like I said to you earlier, Godzilla is embodied by the souls of the war dead who are punishing modern day Japan for having forgotten their torture and their suffering, etc., etc. But there's always something in this film to counter that attitude. Like, even in the first instance, Yuri says, but a lot of Asians and a lot of Americans died as well. And even just sort of the guardian monsters themselves, they are sort of, homeland, not nation.
Yeah, they make that clear.
Yeah.
They make that distinct.
Defending the people, not
the institution.
Not our idea of an institutionalized nation. So there's always something to counter that. So it's interesting to see where this film comes down. And yes, you could make a point, that this film does have a heavy military presence. I'm not saying any film that has a heavy military presence is fetishizing that or is nationalistic. But there's a heavy military presence, and it has feature characters that have strong faith in military power,
strong military ties, even if they're not in the military.
But that does not make a pro-military or a pro-nation film, etc.
Not necessarily.
And especially in this film, where Admiral Tachibana has the line where he says something like, "I'm proud to have never seen combat."
Yeah. I mean, that is a great perspective to have, and
it's true within the context of this film and at the time of its release in real life in 2001, and now in the film, Japan's never seen combat since Godzilla, and in the real world, Japan's never seen combat since World War II. Because, and obviously, I think Japan doesn't have a traditional army. It has self-defense forces, which are literally what they do on the tin, defend Japan in case of outward invasion or attack. But they're never going to be deployed
elsewhere
abroad, despite what the current Japanese administration feels. But that's a whole different thing, which I'm not going to get into for 1 second. But the self-defense forces in Japan in real life have never been deployed.
Yeah, really.
That's...
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And I think this is a film that actually does attempt to actually bring in some interesting discussions rather than just, here's a monster, he's going to fight.
Yeah.
There's always a place for that. There really always is. But, I mean, again, as we go into 2000, and as we especially are in a film that's made in the year 2001, very political year, we shall say. I mean, it certainly is such an interesting and dynamic kind of topic to have.
Yeah.
Another thing that's interesting to me about this film in particular is that it's on the road to Shin. It's another film that kind of brings these questions of nation and of sort of shared trauma and the past.
Yeah.
And again, a focus on boardrooms and interdepartmental discussion. And it just is nice to watch these films as we go on and just see where these very influential films for what will be the very, very good Shin Godzilla.
Shin Godzilla, recently voted Japan's favourite Godzilla film.
Great.
Can't bend the shin. But yeah, the themes, the sort of exploration of the military and self-defense forces in this film is sort of a continuation of what Kaneko did in the Gamera films. And I think it's Gamera 2 from 1996 in particular sort of deals with sort of a sort of invasion of sort of man-sized monsters, and there's a lot of discussion in that film in terms of, deploying the self-defense forces and saying, can we? Does this count as a hostile, deliberate invasion? Is this a deliberate assault on the Japanese people? Can the defense forces be deployed? And that's a thing also that comes up, as you mentioned there, in Shin Godzilla, the idea that can we deploy against this creature because we don't know that
it could just be a natural
causing
thing. Yeah,
it's deliberately being a menace, etc. But a lot to talk about.
Yeah, it's a fascinating film.
GMK. And in a lot of ways, we've sort of lent on the sort of darker elements of the film, but in a lot of ways, this reminds me a lot of the Showa era Godzilla films like by Ishiro Honda in the 60s, like Ghidorah the Red-Headed Monster and Mothra versus Godzilla and Destroying Monsters, things like that.
It is not a grim film by any stretch of the imagination, and in fact it's actually very, very funny, and it knows it.
It's not grim, it's a bit tough around the edges than the previous than a lot of previous Godzilla films.
It just knows it can actually afford to be a little darker with its subject matter while still maintaining a fairly upbeat, fairly reasonable classic Godzilla kind of tone.
Yeah.
You're right. We're sort of focusing on sort of reading between the lines and a few things here and there, but it's a compelling film. It's a fun film. It's by no means a sort of grim viewing.
It's a very colourful film as well. It's a very pleasing film to look at. Even just the monsters themselves. Maragon is often referred to as Red Godzilla, and Godzilla is a sort of dark, charcoalish, grey, greenish creature as is normal, but all of his enemies are very bright and colourful.
King Ghidorah is like a godly, heavenly gold, like a shining, radiant, beautiful gold.
Yeah, and Mothra is her usual radiant self with all the colours and stuff, and Maragon is a nice sort of crimsonish, purpley red, and it's a really. I like this film a lot.
Yeah, me too. I like this film a lot. I thought it was great. Now, what is your G-Fest story for the screening of this film?
It's not my story, but this is one I've heard. This is one I've heard. I don't know if it was in 2002. It would have been like the. I believe G-Fest held, sort of the first North American screening of this film. Because by this point, Godzilla films aren't being released in America theatrically and stuff. But I think G-Fest had the first theatrical showing in North America. And the story I've heard is that, Shusuke Kaneko, the director, is in attendance at the screening, but not there as a guest. He just flew over, didn't tell anyone.
Wow.
He didn't tell anyone he was going because he wanted to see the film in a theatre with American fans and see how they reacted to it without them knowing he was there.
Right, okay. That's really cool.
So he just showed up at G-Fest.
That's amazing. Just popped in. Yeah. Well, I mean, people do that now. They just wear disguises.
Yeah. And apparently it started a big feud between... Well, you say feud. I doubt Kaneko even knows this quote-unquote feud exists. But between he and the organizer, I should say, of G-Fest.
Why?
But, because there's a lot of egos in that group and stuff.
Sure.
But,
I'm sure.
But yeah, I believe, they were annoyed that he was there without
telling
being
them.
a guest and stuff.
Without doing the thing. That's very funny though. What a great story. What a great thing.
Yes, just imagine like the film finishes like, I'm here.
Hello guys. Well, actually, he's here listening to the podcast as well, Stephen. He specifically wanted to know what we thought.
Come in, Shisuke.
You're welcome. He was here the entire time. He would speak, but he's got a cold.
Yeah, he's
So I think that was a good chat.
That was alright.
We've certainly beat the hour mark. I feel like the last couple of films, some of them we've been struggling, but this film was filled to the brim. I feel like I could talk about this for a lot longer, but man, great film. I want to know what you guys think. Of course, we're on Facebook. Yeah. Let us know. Comment. Yeah. We have our email address as well, which is...
Well, you just hold your horses there. It's all right. It's all right.
Speeding away here.
What the fandom thinks of this film.
Of course, of course. I don't care what you think. It's only about me. What do fans make of this?
This film is massively highly regarded.
Cool, good. For once we agree.
We're talking like all-time best.
Okay.
And I think it's in my top 5 as well.
Yeah.
It's maybe not in as high a spot as it used to occupy. This used to be like 2 or 3 for me.
Right.
But it's still top 5, I think. Maybe not quite up there. But...
Yeah, I'll need to reassess. Near the top 5, certainly top 10.
Yeah.
But again, I think I'll need to go back and reassess.
Well, I was going to say, we've been doing this for over 2 years now, so You're a forgetful young man at the best of times, so...
So some of these films are lost to the ethers of my brain. I mean, it would be nice when we reach the amount of films that we physically have to record of the Godzilla film. It would be nice to go do a story so far.
Rossi's brain is like the Disney vault. Things get locked away and then...
never return.
Then when...
or when they get reutilised in something different.
So yeah, this film was very... highly regarded in the fandom at large.
No, that's good to hear.
Yeah. Although, as much as I adore this film, I can't help but think what it maybe would have been in Kaneko's original version.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah.
I mean,
because it would have been Godzilla up against 3 monsters that were, a good bit smaller than him and a bit. And it would have maybe made it a bit less anticlimactic that the Guardian monsters
all
don't
get destroyed.
Nothing.
I mean, it's kind of great because it almost like incapacitates that own legend. I mean, the mystery of the old man is left hanging.
Oh gosh, we
haven't mentioned that. I mean,
yeah.
There's no man. He's weird and he's old and he talks about legends and stuff like that. You know the drill. But yeah, at the end, it's revealed that his recordings with Yuri have disappeared. That the man he claims to be is apparently legally dead.
Was dead from 75 years ago, yeah.
So the hanging question as to who this old man with a mysterious knowledge, and whom is the one that awakens King Ghidorah, and knows where he is in the first place, is unclear. Is he a sort of ancient guardian? Is he a human that's tasked with this knowledge? Is he from outer space? Is he literally just an old man?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, that actor Issei Yamamoto was a regular in like 60s Toho and stuff.
Right. Okay.
So,
I've done. Think we've done no bad there. No bad there at all, Stephen.
So up next.
What's next?
Is the first part in a duology.
A duo? There's that 2?
Yeah, 2.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
2.
A sequel. I call it a prequel/sequel with no film in between.
Sure, why not? So the next film has Masaki Tezuka returning to the director's chair, who last did fucking Megaguirus. And again, it's a reboot again of sorts, and it's got another familiar face. We have Godzilla against Mechagodzilla.
Ooh, lovely. So we're dipping back into the Mechagodzilla well, actually, fairly soon since the last time.
We certainly are.
I'm down to dive in.
Yeah, cool. I'm glad, because we shall.
We shall. Together, friends.
We will. And we say this all the time, because we're a wee bit tardy on episodes. This year in particular, we've been a little bit, ugh.
Life gets in the way.
Yeah,
but we do want to try for you guys.
But one more before the year's out.
Oh,
right?
certainly.
Yeah.
No, we'll certainly get another before the year's out.
Yeah.
We certainly don't want to leave you hanging for another. This the wait for this one's been just a little over a month, I think.
Yeah.
We want to maybe have that not be the case. So certainly before the year's out.
So we will be back to you hopefully sooner rather than later with 2002's Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. We can be reached
Where?
On Facebook, Kaijusaurus Podcast. Give us a like and follow us there. There's some updates going out there sometimes.
Where else?
I don't know. Twitter.
At Steven Scrivello.
And at Roz Menzies.
Now, my clock's locked at the moment. Just add me. Just because I'm applying for professional things. I need to keep my Twitter under wraps. But do feel free to still give me the little request there. And we do have an email address.
And he'll see if you're deemed worthy.
Exactly. I will judge you. I will go through everything of yours, and I will make the final decision.
Email address, kaijusaurus@hotmail.co.uk. Give us an email if you're feeling chatty. And iTunes, give us a rating or review if you're feeling generous.
Tell your friends. If you've got a buddy that you want to get into Godzilla movies, tell them about us. We are the best companion you could possibly hope for these Godzilla films. Certainly when the series wraps up as well, you're going to have a great 30-part series as a wonderful companion to any friend of yours that's hoping to get into the Godzilla films or someone that you're hoping to encourage. Tell your friends about us. Tell your friends about the Godzilla movies as well, though I'm sure you have tried plenty.
Oh, stuff's been happening in Japan with Godzilla and stuff.
Tell me.
Since we last recorded, the anime film Godzilla Planet of the Monsters has been released.
That's right.
In Japan. Coming to Netflix either later this year or early 2018.
For us.
Well,
that's good. That means we'll actually have more Godzilla films than we started off with.
So that's been out in Japan. It's getting okay reviews. Nothing.
We'll see what we think.
Nothing on the old Shin level, but then again, what is? But I find out something very interesting about that is that it was originally conceived as a TV series,
right?
But after the monumental success of Shin Godzilla, Toho went, nah, film.
Cinematic release.
Make it a film.
Make it longer.
A film.
Make it longer, lads.
So that's why we're suddenly getting a 3-part anime Godzilla film trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm cool with that. I'm down with that. And these will be official parts of the canonical number.
Well, yeah, sure. The theatrically released
Godzilla
Godzilla
films. Down to, 32 films? 33 films?
Fuck. Shin was the... No,
29?
fucking shit. Shin... We're at 31. The original 28 Japanese ones. Godzilla 98. Legendary Godzilla. And Shin. So we're at 31.
And then when these 3 are out, 34.
Yeah.
Wow, that'll be good.
Plenty
so,
to keep us going.
Friends, it's been pleasure.
So wait, we have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 films to go. That are currently out.
Yeah.
2 more beyond that. The second 2 anime ones. And Godzilla King of the Monsters, Legendary 2, and Godzilla vs. Kong.
Lovely.
So there's plenty more Kaijusaurus content coming your way.
The horizons are big and beautiful, shiny and bright. Bye, friends. We love you.
Goodbye. Take care.
Have a good one.
Yeah.